The following are true scary stories from the subreddit Let's Not Meet. I'll have a link in the description below. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more. Let's begin. This is a story that my dad told me about his childhood neighbors. My dad grew up in good old Vantucky, Vancouver, Washington, out in the woods, away from the inner city part. The way he describes the area during the 60s and 70s sounded more like the boonies than it did to the now sprawling metropolis it had become. My dad lived with my grandpa. It was just them. My grandma had died of cancer when my dad was only 6 years old. My dad had a few good close friends growing up, but he would find himself entertaining himself in the backyard, building shit, blowing shit up with M80s, the usual kid shit. In this neighborhood, there were a lot of cats, feral and domestic. He and my grandfather noticed that the cats in the neighborhood started to disappear by the day. About a week after they noticed this all happening, my dad was in the backyard doing whatever shit he was doing, when he heard a ton of laughing from his neighbor's backyard. His neighbors were off, as my dad explained. It was a single father and his two sons. No idea what happened to the mother, but my dad said he always heard yelling and fights over there at their house. Anyways, he hears this manic laughter, and then the lawnmower start up, so he peeks over the fence to see what the commotion was. The two neighbor kids, maybe around 10, were playing on the ride-on lawnmower. My dad still couldn't figure out why they were laughing, but as he scanned the yard, he noticed that there were cats' heads popping up at random holes all around the yard. The neighbor's kids had buried these cats up to their neck with their heads sticking out. The kids were taking turns riding the lawnmower over the cats' heads, essentially decapitating them. My dad tried to count as many cats as he could, about 10, before running inside to inform his grandfather what was going on. My grandfather went outside, looked for himself, and told my dad to go inside. He then went to the door to talk to the father of the two kids. My dad never got the story of what happened with my grandfather and the other father, but my dad was to never associate with the neighbor kids again. Not long after that, my dad moved with my grandfather into another part of town. Apparently, the older brother of the two neighbors, after he graduated high school, was still with his girlfriend who was a senior in high school. He went with her to prom, and after the prom ended up raping her and beating her to death with a rock, and is in jail. Also, the younger brother was apparently in and out of jail, and that was the last they'd ever heard about the family once my dad moved up to North Puyallup. I wish I could get articles on this, but my grandfather and dad both say it's a 100% true story. So creepy, sadistic neighbors from my dad's childhood, I hope I have never met or run into you. Let's not meet. Ever. When I was 2 years old, my parents moved towns because they got jobs at a very high-security correctional facility. When we first moved, we were in a small 2-bedroom house until my parents could afford to move into something more accommodating to a growing family of 5. A while after I had turned 3, so my parents had been working at this correctional facility for about 3.5, my parents had finally saved up enough money to buy a bigger house. So my parents began packing and decided they needed to hire a moving company to help with the boxes they had packed because working full-time and having 3 children, 2 of them 3-year-old twins, and trying to move was a handful. Also, it's hard with one car. The movers show up and my dad is at work and my mom took the day off to be there when they showed up and helped the process along, and it was agreed that my dad would do it the next day, and it was supposed to be done. Everything runs smoothly. The next day, my dad has the day off, and the movers show up. One of the movers, a particularly rough-looking guy with intimidating tattoos, walks up to my dad and says, "Hello, Officer Wright." My dad said he about pissed his pants. This guy was someone who had apparently just got out of the prison my parents were working at, and was now moving one of the prison's guards into his new house. My dad said this wasn't a particularly friendly inmate, and had a bit of a reputation. They finished moving our stuff, and I think my dad informed the police just in case it turned into something. But I'm not 100% sure. For a few months following the move, we kept getting scary handwritten notes in our mailbox. The first one they got said something along the lines of, "You have a beautiful family, better keep a close eye on them." Not long after, we got something like, "Tell little Ryan, my older brother who was 5, I say hi, better keep a close eye on him." After that, the letters came saying personal things about me and my siblings' daily routes and saying threatening things. Luckily, my dad obviously knew who they were coming from and reported it to police when things escalated. After that, the letters stopped. First job I ever had was a cashier at a discount grocery store chain exclusive to my state and area of said state. I worked there for the summer after high school and through my first year of college. The pay was crap and so was the job, but I appreciate that they were at least willing to give me some work experience. This particular store also tended to get more low-income customers, so I have some weird stories, but this one is burned into my memory. It was late February and pretty much dead. Usually around 6 in the evening, the manager on duty would pull some of the cashiers off the front to straighten the shelves so we could get home as early as possible after close. Since they had minimal staffing most night, it usually meant only one cashier, almost always me, would be the only person up front while everyone else went and did their thing. I'm just now realizing how dangerous this actually was. I'm 5 foot tops, weigh less than 120 pounds, and pretty much have nothing against someone with more height or weight, should I ever get attacked. Around 8 in the evening, the manager pulled the other 3 cashiers off the registers and sent them to straighten, leaving me to ring out the occasional customers that floated through. A gentleman, about 65 years old, came up to my lane with his basket of groceries, and I proceeded to ring him out. I could tell he wasn't from the US, and I would judge by his thick accent to be Hungarian, Romanian, or some other Eastern European. He kind of reminded me of a heavier, shorter Jerry Orbach, for you Law & Order fans. This particular chain of store had a whole section called Closeout, which was really leftover junk that other stores like Target couldn't sell when they were out of season. This chain got them at a discount. Because of this, they were required to cross out the original barcode with marker and put price stickers on the items. These were almost always fell off and were uncommon for customers to bring stuff up to the register with no price tags. I thought this was the case here. The guy puts his black drawstring bag on the counter, thinking it was a random closeout item that he was carrying in the bag. Yeah, I was that stupid when I was 18. I reached into it and pulled out the object. Not knowing what it was, I randomly rang out $1.99 closeout price and put it in the bag. The old guy that I was waiting on kept a straight face and eyeballed me the entire time I rang his order. I gave him his receipt and thanked him as he left. I didn't realize until I was driving home one night, around the time I left that job, and was thinking about it. That thing in that guy's bag was most likely his used dildo, and I touched it with my bare hands. That was just one of the many things looking back that made me hate that place, and I quit right after school got out that summer. To the creepy old European perv who likes to embarrass young female cashiers with sex toys disguised as store merchandise, I hope we never meet again. I also hope someone catches you doing